The large intestine has a unique histology that determines its function. In this video, we're going to cover the topic of the microscopic structure of the large intestine. As with any part of the GI tract, we have four main layers: the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layers, and the serosa. Let's start with the mucosa. It is the innermost layer of the intestine, and it serves two functions: the absorption of electrolytes and water from chyme, and mucus production to lubricate fecal matter. The unique structure of the large intestine is the crypts of Luricon. These crypts are test tube-like arrangements that consist of many cells and are responsible for the functions above. Two cells primarily achieve this. It's the absorptive cells, which absorb water and electrolytes and line the surface of the epithelium, and are the majority of the cells found in crypts in the right transverse colon. Then we have goblet cells, which secrete mucus and are the major type of cells found in the left side of the colon, where we will find harder feces that require replication. Other cells include enteroendocrine cells, which are involved in the homeostasis and immunology of the gut. These are found deeper into the crypts. The epithelium type is simple columnar, and we have the lamina propria, which is a loose connective tissue rich in capillaries and lymphatics. It supports the crypts and consists of mesenchymal and immune cells. The inflammatory cells consist mainly of eosinophils, macrophages, and lymphocytes. Plasma cells are present, and they secrete IgA, which are part of the mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue, known as MALT. Next, we have the submucosa. It is primarily loose connective tissue with thin, smooth muscle bundles, nerve plexuses, adipose tissue, and vasculature. The Muscularis mucosa separates the mucosa from the submucosa and is important from a pathological point of view as it determines architectural distortion. On endoscopy, polyps may be extracted and looked under a microscope at the pathology lab. Here they will look at many masses or lymph aggregates that might extend into the submucosa. Then we have the muscularis layers, which involve an inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer. The inner circular layers are much more dominant, whereas the outer layer is much more thinner. In between these layers, you will find the Auerbach plexus, and the role of this entire layer is peristosis, haustral churning, and mass contractions during defecation. The majority of the force generated comes from the inner circular layer. Finally, we have the serosal layer, which is composed of fibrous tissue and cuboidal mesothelial cells. The motility of the large intestine is governed by a complex system of reflexes. The three main reflexes include the gastrocolic reflex for when meals enter the stomach, the gastroileal reflex for when the chyme enters the terminal ileum, and the defecation reflex triggered by the distension of the rectum. Intrinsic gut motility comes from peristalsis, haustral churning, and mass peristalsis. Peristalsis is the rhythmic contractions, usually 3 to 12 per minute, within the large colon. Haustral churning is when each of the haustra within the colon are relaxed and filled until a certain point, causing the walls to contract and squeeze the contents to the next haustra. The haustrations roll the fecal material around every portion to expose it to the absorptive surfaces of the colonic mucosa, thereby increasing absorption of water and electrolytes. Mass peristalsis is a strong peristaltic wave in the middle of the transverse colon that drives contents into the rectum. Unlike other regular peristalsis, this wave lasts longer and is much stronger. It causes the emptying of the proximal right colon to the distal left. The stretching of the stomach intensifies the peristalsis in the ileum to force chyme into the cecum through the ileocecal valve. The ileocecal valve gets relaxed by gastrin. Chyme accumulates in the cecum and in the ascending colon as the ileocecal valve opens. The stretching of the stomach at the same time intensifies the mass movements in the right side of the colon. Together, this triggers mass peristalsis, which occurs 3 to 4 times a day. The goal is to send the contents from the right side of the colon through the various haustral segments for churning, where water and electrolytes get reabsorbed. These strong waves of contraction send the chyme from the right colon to the left. Here, stretches in the sigmoid colon and rectum, combined with the gastrocolic reflex, cause mass peristalsis of the rectum, which triggers the defecation reflex. The defecation reflex starts with the distension of the rectum. Local parasympathetic reflex activates the S2 to S4 nerve roots, and these send parasympathetic signals back to the rectum, the colon, and the anus. The longitudinal muscles of the rectum contract, causing the rectum to shorten. This increases the pressure within the rectum. The internal anal sphincter relaxes via the same parasympathetic efferents, and by contracting the abdominal muscles in the diaphragm, the urge to defecate increases. It would be inconvenient to defecate whenever the rectum fills up and the internal sphincter relaxes. The last bastion of control is the external anal sphincter and the puborectalis muscles, both of which are skeletal muscles and are controlled voluntarily. The puborectalis muscle loops around the rectum and attaches to the pubis, thereby creating a kink to generate pressure to obstruct the stool. When we deem it necessary to defecate, the pudendal nerve causes voluntary relaxation of the puborectalis and external sphincter, which results in the passage of stool. If defecation does not occur, the feces back up into the sigmoid colon until the next peristaltic wave. The knowledge of this pathway becomes relevant in spinal injuries and defecation in people who are prone to hemorrhoids. In the picture here, we can see that the elevation of the feet during defecation can aid with defecation by reducing the tension of the puborectalis muscle. This is often given as a recommendation for patients who struggle with hemorrhoids, straining, or are elderly. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something. If you want to like and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated.